You're listening to Bad Dog Agility, bringing you training tips, interviews, and news about the great sport of dog agility. And now, here are your hosts, Sarah and Esteban.
I'm Esteban.
And I'm Sarah, and this is episode 169.
Today's podcast is brought to you by Back on Track. Dog agility is a demanding sport and can be difficult on the body, both the dogs and the humans. Back on Track specializes in dog blankets, beds, and wraps that keep muscles warm and reduce the pain in joints. If you've got a nagging knee, calf, or ankle injury, Back on Track's human products can help get you back in the ring. Visit Back on Track at backontrackproducts.com.
Today's podcast is also brought to you by Elite Science. Unlock your dog's full potential with a unique competitive edge solution, 1TDC. 1-tetradecanol complex is a patented blend of unique fatty acid oils designed to safely and effectively keep joints and muscles at their best to maximize performance and shorten recovery time. 1TDC is the next generation of fatty acids and is used by many current and past national agility champions and world team members. All of our listeners will automatically qualify for a great 1TDC special offer by purchasing online at bda1tdc.com. That's BDA, the number 1, TDC.com. In today's podcast, we're going to talk about our crate-to-crate routines. And this was a question that came to us on one of our Facebook Live episodes. And somebody said he would be interested in hearing how we manage our dogs at shows. So kind of that time from getting the dog out, how far in advance, what do you do when you're waiting your turn on the line, what do you do after you run, kind of everything that goes into that time period. And we thought this would be a great kind of panel-style podcast to talk with our sponsored athletes, Sarah Baker and Jennifer Crank, and also Esteban, and get their thoughts, because everybody's going to have different routines, and get their thoughts on this idea of the crate-to-crate.
Yeah, I like that. You'll have a lot of different dogs, a lot of different experiences, and hopefully you can find one that kind of fits with you and your style and your dog's personality, I think. So why don't we go ahead and start with Jennifer. We've got Jennifer, you're up first.
Hi there.
Tell us about your crate-to-crate routine.
Yeah, I think I had to kind of think through exactly what I do, but in thinking it through, I'm pretty predictable and do have a pretty set pattern. But anytime I'm getting ready to go for my run and get my dogs out of the crate, I always make sure everything that I need to do is taken care of. I have the right shoes on. I've gone to the bathroom. I've already had somebody set up to film my run so that when I get my dogs out, when I get them out, I want it to be 100% on them. I don't want to be getting them out and then finding somebody to film or realizing I have to go to the bathroom. So for my guys, I probably get them out of their crate, I would say, 10 to 15 dogs before their run, depending on if it's standard or jumpers. But I want enough time to get them out. And I do generally 4 to 6 minutes of like fast-paced, active, like moving around and walking. So whether it be out in the parking lot doing some laps or walking around in the arena, I want to get them warm. I want to get them moving. And then once I do that, I will head over to the practice jump. And we've actually done a little interview about what I do at the practice jump. But I basically try to work through the practice jump, warming up and reviewing the skills that I think the course needs. Whether it be a rear cross or a front cross or a lead out, I try to warm up those skills. And I like to head over to the gate and check in with the gate anywhere between, 4 to 6 dogs before I'm going to run. So that at that point, it's just me and my dogs. I normally have my treats. We do a few tricks. We're doing some focus. I try not to be at that point disengaging to watch too many of the runs. And then I'm there ready to go so that I finish off my treats as I walk into the ring and get ready to run.
Yeah, I really liked what you talked about with the warm-up jump. And we do have a whole little clip about that. And I'm going to put that in the show notes because I thought that was, at least to me, a very unique way of using the warm-up jump. So I definitely want people to go check that out. And then one thing that you said that I know kind of everybody deals with to some degree, you talked about kind of timing it so that you run out of treats like the dog before you're about to go in the ring. And everybody who uses treats has run into the situation where they run out of treats too early, right? Something happens. There's a mock run. There's the something that happens with the resetting the bars or something. So what do you do in those situations?
Well, I'm fortunate that for my dogs, even though they are primarily food motivated, we do have a good enough relationship that I feel like I can get them to engage with me pretty well and have fun without treats. So in that moment, sometimes it's finding a buddy who has some extra treats that I can borrow. But I know with my guys, I can kind of get down on the ground, play a few, games with them, grab their feet or tug with them on the leash, or even just do a few tricks, nose touch here and there and praising with them or tugging with them. But I've also been on the other end where somebody in front of me has run out of treats and they look at you, do you have a few extras? And at least in our area, everybody's, very helpful to pitch in. Here's a piece of cheese or here's a hot dog or whatever. But that timing, you're right, because all it takes is one mock run or the batteries on the timers to run out and it's messed up your whole routine.
And one thing about routines is they can really help you, but people can get really attached to their routines, where when things don't go well in their routine, when something changes in their routine, it can really throw them for a loop. So you have to learn to kind of roll with the punches and to realize that you can have amazing performance even if you're, rushing up with your dog, having not realized you were going in because there were 3 scratches ahead of you. So, you can always have that amazing run no matter what happens in your routine.
Absolutely. I've experienced both ends of that. At local shows, I might have 5 dogs just in the 16-inch class, and you're talking, 5 or 6 in between, and you have to be ready, and you have to go, and you have to get up there, and you're very quick, and maybe you didn't get to do part of what you wanted. And then it tends to be at bigger events, I get paranoid I'm going to miss my run, so I give myself all this extra time, and then you get ringside too soon, and now you have all this downtime. So you have to be flexible, you have to be willing to work and make adjustments for sure.
Right. And you're not judged on your routine.
Right.
You're judged on the 30 seconds in the ring after you've tripped the start line. So that's good news.
Well, I have a question for you since you use predominantly food now, and I had dogs before the Border Collie, and I think even to some extent Gitchy, I think was mostly a food dominant dog, and then I a little bit converted her to toy. She had a pretty good split between the two. So for myself, I always have the leash. If there's a delay, you can just get them tugging back on the leash, provided you haven't thrown it aside and it's been carried to the end of the course. So with the food, you often see beginners really loading up on the treats before the run. Oftentimes they'll run out of food. And sometimes I wonder if that doesn't have an impact on how the dog does agility. What are your thoughts on the percent of food? Let's say they have some ridiculous amount of food, like a pound of food, and they're giving 75% of that food before the run and only 25% after. In theory, is that negatively impacting them, or is this something that we really shouldn't concern ourselves with?
Yeah, I've absolutely seen the scenario that you're talking about, and we try to talk about it with our beginners and discuss it in class. But no, I do think it affects them. I do try to use a lower value treat before my runs, and then they get something different when we get done with our runs to put more emphasis on the time in the ring and the run in the ring. They exerted more energy, so they should get a higher value reward. But I absolutely think even just looking at quantity and not even changing the quality of it, absolutely. It's no different than us, right? So, if you're hungry, you haven't eaten in 24 hours, and I show up with a hamburger and I say, okay, here it is, each hamburger that you eat, you're going to pay less for the next one. So you might say, yeah, $50, I'm starving, let me eat that. The second one, well, I had one, maybe I'm only going to pay $20. After you've had 3 hamburgers, you're sending me away and paying me to walk away. So each treat that you give is going to lower value of the next one. And I see that where dogs get out of their crate and they're at the practice jump, really motivated, really working for the food. Handler gives so much food, and now the dog goes, well, I'm full. I don't have any reason to go out there and run really hard in the ring because I've gotten everything that I wanted. So I think it's watching quantity, it's watching quality. A lot of people will do the jackpots at the end of the run with the baby food or the peanut butter to just put that little extra on them. But I think it's more, filling them up and having them just lose value in the food altogether. You really have to watch.
That's really well put. I love the hamburger story there. And
I've definitely had too many hamburgers before. I've definitely been in that state where you please don't show me.
Yeah, and the dogs, I've seen the dogs. They're like, I'm done. I'm over it.
I've found over the years that with my food motivated dogs, that I kept shortening the amount of time before a run over which I was giving them treats. So like when I first started, with like the distractible Rottweiler or Golden or whoever, from the time I get them out of the crate and I show up at the line, almost immediately, like I'm trying to parcel out these treats and, try and calculate, how many minutes do I have? I've got, 20 treats or 15 treats or however many treats. And, over the years, I just really shortened up that time so that I think to myself, okay, you know what? You can do whatever you want until there are 2 or 3 dogs in front of us. Okay, now I'm going to go into the treat routines. Okay, and now these 15 treats are going to be spread out over a much shorter period of time. You get a higher reinforcement rate, I think, and you're not quite so worried about your dog.
Yeah.
And then I just found that I kept pushing that limit until basically, like now with Gitchy, I was like, even at nationals, like running before the final or Westminster, I'm like, okay, dog, do whatever you want. You can scratch around in the dirt. You can sniff. You can look over there. You can go to take a nap, do whatever you want. But, when the dog in front of us gets in the ring, I'm going to get you on this leash. We're going to get Tuggy and we're going to go ahead and go in. Like I made it that short with this dog. Now, I don't know that I would do that with a food motivated dog. I don't think you necessarily have that option. And I wouldn't shorten it that much with certain kinds of personality type dogs, but that's what worked for Gitchy. And I just found that I just kept shortening it. And I really like that. The hamburger analogy. Yeah, it really kind of made me think of it. And the other reason I thought of it was I took our 7-year-old daughter to swimming lessons. So she just restarted swimming lessons after like a year or two off. It's summertime. She needs to learn how to swim. And what they do is at the end of the swimming lesson, little half-hour swimming lesson, they have a big bucket of lollipops. And each kid gets to jump out of the water, go grab their lollipop, and then they go get their towels and, the parents bring them their shoes and all that stuff. And I just thought, it's such a great way to reinforce the child and reward. I was thinking we do the same thing in agility, right? You give your dog the food after the performance. And then I thought, would it make sense to give a kid who is really afraid of the water a lollipop before they got in the water? And then like another one after or 2 after. And it just made me think about only a dog trainer, I think, would think about those kind of things when they're at their kids' swimming lessons. But it made me think of those things. And so when Sarah came to me with this idea, I was like, okay, yeah, let's find out what
I absolutely think people do, in my experience, a little too much rewarding before the run. I have Lucky, one of my Chelsea's Lucky. I will sometimes kind of cough up a cookie at the end of the run. It actually got us at tryouts a couple of years ago. So I started to use no food on show days. We just use toys. We just tug and warm up with our toy and use our toys after the run. Sometimes he might get something soft like peanut butter. And I definitely did not see a significant change in his focus going into the ring. I think a lot of people think, oh, well, he's not as focused on you. He didn't get those treats. And, I used the toy and I would play with him a lot. He's a Sheltie. He's not super toy motivated. And I didn't see a big change. I think a lot of people are afraid if they don't use treats or they don't use enough treats, the dog's not going to, be focused with them. But I've been really happy with just switching it more to engagement with the handler, not just, oh, here's a cookie at the end of the leash, but really interacting with me and engaging with me. So I think it's worth trying. The other thing, I think I probably should have mentioned this a little earlier. So we only show indoors here in Ohio and around the area. And all of the shows around us have treat buckets at the beginning and the end of the course. So like kind of by the gate and by the entry and the exit. Oh. And it is basically a designated bucket that literally says treats here, that you can like put your bait bag in, or you can put your stick of cheese in, or you can put your bag of hot dogs in. And it's allowing the people in our area, and I don't know if this is good or bad, but to not have that issue of like running out, because they can take their treat bag. So their whole bag of Zooks or their whole bag of, cheese right up to the ring. And then they just drop it right in this bucket and they know exactly where it is when they come out. So the leash runner doesn't move it or anything, or people will plan them at the end. But if I compare that to, like say when I've gone to nationals and there's nothing there, or I have to go set it, with a friend in the stands, it is easier to run out of your treats and kind of time your treat dispensing a little bit better.
So let's talk about what happens after the run. I don't think we talked about that yet. So after your run, you did mention that you might have, that's where you have your higher value reward. But then what's the kind of the time frame after the run, getting your dog back to their crate?
So for my guys, I'm really, really big on warming up and cooling down. So like I said, I do a lot of active walking before the runs, and I actually do all of their stretching early in the morning. All their static stretching where they like lay on their sides and all that is all done first thing in the morning. But when I'm done, get my leash on before I leave the ring, of course. And then we go out and I give them their treats, and we do kind of the reverse. So we do a decent cool down, walking around until I can get rid of that heavy panting, or I can see that the dog's a little bit more relaxed. Often at that point, we do go outside to walk around since we're done with the run, and I don't need to be following the gate sheets or finding a marker dog. And then once they're done with that, I do take them back into their crate or into my office if we're showing at my building, get a drink of water, put their back on track coats on, and then kind of put them in their crate and wait for the next run. So I kind of just reverse it. I don't think I do anything particularly unique.
I like that. To me, it mirrors what we do in, human sports, right? That's going to be part of your warm-up routine. Whether you're playing basketball or football, you're going to get out there and you're going to start with a walk. Then you're going to start with some jogging before you get to your kind of running and sprints. You want to warm up all the muscles. And then cool down is such an important part, especially if you've got multiple runs, right? So, if you're running, I guess tryouts is a pretty good example, or even nationals, right? Where you might have 2 runs, and then your 3rd run could be the challenge round. Your 4th run could be the finals if you make that. And so a single dog can have 4 runs in a day. If you're out there doing 1 run, it's not such a big deal if you skip the cool down, right? Sure, maybe your dog's going to be a little tighter or a little sore or not recover as quickly, but it doesn't matter because you're kind of done. But if you're going to have to do this 2 or 3 more times, then it becomes a very big deal to try and get rid of the lactic acid a little more quickly, to make sure that your dog is not going to tighten up between runs, that their muscles are going to have a little bit of recovery, because you are going to see a small decline in performance, potentially. As the runs go on. I know for Gitchy, having just had the litter at nationals, is something I was really worried about, that by the time you got to finals, she wouldn't have enough juice, and then you'd start seeing some bars come down or see a drop in speed you really don't want to be seeing. And so, I really like that. And I think it's something that I don't do very well, like me personally. Like it's a goal that I've set for myself. Cool down your dog more after. And for me, that's walking around. And at least when I run Gitchy, it's nice because Susan's often at a lot of those trials. So Susan is Gitchy's co-owner, and it's easy to pass Gitchy off and say, "Susan, take a lap."
Oh, he's got it so easy, because I take Gitchy out and make sure she goes to the bathroom like well before her run. So he really
now you're giving away all the secrets.
All the secrets. Have another person. He really just has to worry about crate to crate, especially in an event where I'm not competing and he is. That's always helpful.
I definitely want to ask you about that, you Jen, because I know that there's situations where you've run 6, 7, 8 dogs at a trial. Have you ever utilized an assistant? And for those agility competitors out there who go with a friend or a spouse, how can they best make use of them in this kind of crate to crate routine? What are your thoughts on that?
Oh yeah, I've used friends. I've had people help me. I've had, people work with me to hold dogs or cool dogs down. And even, I'll admit it, at big events, I've actually paid people to come along and do nothing but be my helper for scenarios like that. So particularly at USDA Nationals, where they divide you into groups, all your dogs are in one group, but then the groups are pretty small. So you could have, over the span of 30 dogs, I could be 4 of them. And that doesn't give the dogs the time of the warm up and the cool down. So, I've either had somebody come and paid some of their expenses. But a lot of times what's really good is to find somebody who's not in your jump height that can work and kind of mirror you. So whether it be that person helps videotape you, okay? So you're in the 12s, they're in the 20s, and you videotape each other. Or in my case, it is often with the cool down. I will say that I am probably a little bit more religious and a little bit better about cooling my dogs down than I am even warming them up. And for me, I will find a friend or a helper, and I will say, okay, when I get out of the ring, can you hold this dog while I warm the next one up? Kind of keep them moving. And then once all my dogs in that jump height are finished running, I will take all of them out on a long walk. So right now I have 3 16s. So if I run the first one, I'll have a friend who's not in that jump height, hold them, run the second one, hold the second one. And then when I'm done with the third one, I'll take all 3 dogs and I go outside and we go on a nice walk and I cool them all down together. So I think the key is, finding a friend who maybe will have a similar routine to you and you can do the opposite for them. But finding somebody who's not in the same jump height. You don't want to be asking them to cool your dog down when they should be warming their dog up or why they need to be walking the course. And I also have a few that are in the same boat as you, where I have the dog's co-owners who will always help and assist me if necessary, although I don't try to expect that from them, but they are very, very kind and willing to help potty the dogs and cool the dogs down as well.
I think what I got out of that is that I should be getting paid.
There you go.
Apparently love is sometimes just not enough.
I'll take it.
Well, let me ask you a very concrete question. So people often ask, should their dogs be getting their treats immediately after their run, like right at the ringside, or should you wait until you get back to your crate, or should they have maybe half at the ring and half back at their crate? Or if they don't like food and they, work for a ball, obviously there's some delay before you can get them out to the field, maybe someplace, just off site where you can, remove their leash and throw a ball long distances for them. Should you be using some other kind of bridging type reinforcement or food, even if they don't like it that much? What are your thoughts on that?
That doesn't sound like a very concrete question, but I would say, honestly, that's almost one that's hard to answer because I've seen a little bit of everything. So I've seen the dogs who get the reward as soon as they come out of the ring. And I've also seen problems with that where the dog doesn't want to wait to get their leash on because that treat is sitting right outside the ring or they bust out of the gate. And then, grab their treat right there. And that can be a problem. And then I've also seen the problem with the dogs running to the crate. So again, we show indoors and space is a bit of a problem. And we actually had an incident within the last year where a dog was pulling a handler down the aisle to its crate, so excited to get to its crate, knocked over another handler and tore that handler's meniscus. So, I think you got to be able to have the control to get to the crate. You don't want them to be running down the aisle causing problems that way either. My whole thing with my dogs is, yes, I want to reward them with something that they value, whether it be the treat or the toy. But I like to think that they're not running the course for only that purpose, that we have enough of a relationship that they are enjoying our time together and they can enjoy praise and they can enjoy me petting them down and being excited and playing with them after the run. So I can't say that my treats are right there at the ring and that the only reason my dog is running is to get that cookie and they could care less. I generally praise them or they jump into my arms or we tug on the leash. And then, yes, I kind of work my way over to wherever the treats are. The hard part about leaving treats on a crate is you don't know how far away that is. You have the AKC Nationals and they're back in the stalls, or you might not have the ability to place it right outside the ring. So I think, a little bit of variability and bridging the gap of getting to the treat or the toy just through praise and letting the dog maybe jump up on you or so I know a lot of handlers will kind of catch them at the end of the run and that's, rewarding for the dogs as well. So I think there is the happy medium is to be able to bridge the reward with just praise and play before you make it to the treat or toy wherever you've left that at.
But the important thing is for people to at least give that amount of praise, because you don't want to be in the situation where you leave the ring and now you, the handler, are looking for the person who has your camera, and basically kind of ignoring the dog because the run's over, right? They already got the cue. You have to remember that they need that reward in some form right as you get out of the ring. And it should be about your dog as soon as you get out, not everything else that might be calling
Absolutely.
your attention.
It's kind of like the reverse of my warm up. When I said I do everything I need to before I get the dog, whether that's be change shoes, hand off the camera, go to the bathroom, my exit's the same way. It's my dog. I'm not asking my friend why my dog knocked the bar, and I'm not, running over and checking the computer screen and waiting for my score to come up and finding the person that filmed. It's the dog. When the dog is done and we've done our praise and we've done our cool down, then I'll go find my friend who had my camera. I'll go verify my score. I'll switch back into my flip flops, or whatever. So absolutely. 100% agree with that.
I think that's one thing that I've gotten much better about over, the years is just being very focused on the dog. Just talk to me later, or did I drop any bars? No, okay, good. I'm on my way to the crate, and then once she gets her tugging right there, but then I also get her food at the crate. That's Gitchy's kind of routine. And then once she's in the crate and she's drinking her water and got her Zooks or Biljack or whatever food we're giving her, then it's okay for me to think about things and ask questions and stuff like that. So I think that's pretty important, because you do still see a lot of people, I think, immediately after a run. I think it's just hard. It's not even that it's temptation. It's just that your friends are like right there.
And they're tired. The human is tired. A lot of the handlers, they come off and they're tired.
They can't give any more energy to the dog.
Right. Their energy is done. And sometimes I think the people that will ignore their dog, they may not even realize they're doing it, because I think a lot of times it is people who use food. And so what they do is they grab food and they kind of give their dog food, but they're not really paying attention to the dog. So the dog's getting the food, but the dog isn't getting any praise, Whereas when you're like playing with your dog as reward, you can't be as disengaged from the dog, right?
Yeah.
And I think dogs do need that.
Because then the food is done.
Right.
And then the dog starts jumping on the person, but the person is still trying to tell their story or talk with their friend, and then they get annoyed with the dog and they tell the dog, X, Y, and Z. And now the dog, to me, that's too close to the run. The run just happened and they've had their food, and now you're snapping at them. And I can see the dog's not really wanting to be there right now. I'm like, oh, what are you doing?
Right. Exactly.
I think a common theme that I'm seeing here in talking with you is that a lot of this is going to be dog dependent. A lot of this is going to be trial and error. We've each had so many dogs. You kind of learn from all your dogs. At the same time, you kind of have to tailor it to your dog. Like, how much does my dog really like to play or tug on a leash? How food driven are they? How distractible are they? I'm sure there are other people out there who are going to have very different routines because they have, for example, an unneutered male who doesn't get along with other males in the area. Their routine is probably going to look very different from ours. And so, it's very much informed by the specific dog. But just this whole idea of trial and error. Try something, or if you see someone else doing something, try it. And then if you note an improvement, right, you might have something there, and if something isn't working for you, you don't see any real benefit, well, don't do it.
I think you're absolutely correct. Everybody is going to have their own routine. And that's why I kind of like the panel style discussion today. So we've gotten a fair amount of information about Esteban's routine, and we got some great information about Jennifer's routine. Thank you so much for joining us.
And
today,
as always,
Jennifer.
thanks for having me.
And now we're going to talk to Sarah Baker about her routine and what she does with her dogs crate to crate. Welcome, Sarah.
Hi, thank you.
So let's get a sense, Sarah, for your crate to crate routine.
Well, if it's hops, I try to get him out at least 20 minutes before his run. So, we start with, of course, going potty, and then just walk around to start the warm up. And then we trot, and then we run, and then we start to add in some shadow handling. So your push, pull, front cross, rear cross on the flats. Then we usually do some tugging and some tricks. And then if there's time and the weather is okay, then we will do a little bit of the practice jump, working on some of the maneuvers we might need for the course. And then we head into the rings and work on for him some impulse control and some tricks to work on focus while we're waiting our turn. And then, of course, we run, and afterwards immediately go and get his reward, whatever it is at that time. In the summer, we would then go play in the hose, because that's one of his favorite rewards. And then he has a long cool down. So then we will walk around for quite a while to get him cooled down. And depending on what time of day it is and if he has other runs, we might stretch before we put him back in his crate.
Awesome. And so then how does that change for Rice? Because you definitely mentioned this was for hops.
Yes, Rice would probably get too tired if I warmed him up that much.
Right.
So he would just get a shorter version of all that.
Right. Yeah, it's interesting. Some of the places, I guess, where I deviate from that, I prefer to, at least for pottying, I like to take my dogs out like when there's no time pressure at all. I'm not even, maybe I've walked the course, maybe not, depending on, where I am in the running order, but I like to have gotten that kind of out of the way and feel like my dogs don't need to anymore. And for myself as well. And then I put them back in the crate. And then when it's closer to my run, that's when I'll get them out, and I won't take them out to potty. Then I'll just take them and, be able to go ringside. And we talked a little bit too with Jen about kind of managing that time before you go in, and a lot of people, that's the stressful part, because you don't want to get there too early. You don't want to get there too late. You don't want to feel rushed, but you don't want to, lose your dog's attention or focus. And so, and we did talk a lot with Jen about using food. So I wanted to talk about using a toy, because I use exclusively a toy with the dog that I'm running now. And he loves to tug. And he's one of those dogs that tugs, like if I give him the toy, he'll bite on and never let go. So, so I can actually use that I can have him, on the end basically of a tug, like he's on a leash, but his mouth is on the tug, and I can go check in, and then I can go sit down, and he'll just pull on the tug while I sit there. And then sometimes I'll, have him out the toy, and he'll sit there kind of expectantly looking at me, and then I'll have him get it again. So that's kind of our play routine that I do before I go into the ring.
And Hops uses a toy for most of his warm-up, but when we get too close to the ring and he thinks he's going to go in, then he's too serious for his toy.
Too serious, right? And I know a lot of people tug on leashes, and we do that as well. And so my like handoff routine, I guess, the equivalent of putting the last few treats on the table before you go in or something is I'll have my toy, and then like the one dog before my dog, I will have my dog out his toy. I'll set it on the table, and then I'll immediately say, get it on his leash. And I will walk in the ring with him, having the leash in his mouth. And then that's kind of like how we bridge that gap.
Perfect.
So one thing that everybody's mentioned is this idea of the warm up and the cool down. So, it's very important that we are conscious of that for ourselves and our dogs. And of course, the weather impacts that as well. So when it's really cold or even really hot, we have to take care with how we're doing that warm up.
Definitely. And I will be more conscious of warming myself up physically when it's colder. And I'm also working on my mental warm-up. So if it's an easy-ish AKC course, and I'm pretty sure I have the course in my mind, I'll visualize sporadically as I'm warming myself and Hops up. But if it's a national run, an international course, or a course that I just don't think I have down, I'm visualizing constantly as we're going through our physical warm-up routine.
All right, well, there you have it. 4 different handlers, 4 different crate-to-crate routines. Somewhere in there, we hope that you can find what works best for you and your dog. There's really no right or wrong answer, but you're going to see common elements that people do, the visualization and the warm-up and the cool-down. But most importantly is to make sure that you're taking care of your dog, both physically, but also with your attention and your rewards, and making sure that you have that connection with them that you're going to need when you get out on course. And that's it for this week's podcast. We'd like to thank our sponsors, Elite Science and Back on Track, and also NTI Global. Tread Tunnels, launched in late spring 2017, NTI Global Tread Tunnels are where it's at. Non-slip tread grip, available in both 4 and 6-inch pitch. With an embossed textured surface on the inside of the tunnel, it's designed for low slip tread. Visit shop.ntiglobal.com for the widest selection of dog agility tunnels for both competition and backyard training. Known for free shipping, more options, high quality products, and low prices, NTI Global has got you covered. Also offering tamer and anchor weight bags, along with a full line of accessories and agility storage solutions. Need your agility gear in a hurry? Don't forget to check the in-stock selection. Visit shop.ntiglobal.com and use promo code NTITREAD17 for 5% savings off today. Promo code good through June 30th, 2017. Happy training!
Why did the bicycle fall over? Because it was too tired.